I don't think people like you belong here. The words rang out like a slap just seconds before a full cup of Coca-Cola splashed across Monica Harris's silk blouse, soaking her with ice and humiliation. Flight SV-271 from New York to Los Angeles was boarding its final passengers. The warm lighting in the business class cabin reflected off polished wood accents. Flight attendants smiled mechanically, helping well-dressed passengers settle in. It was a typical first-class atmosphere until she stepped on board. Monica Harris walked with quiet confidence, mid-30s, striking with smooth mahogany skin and her dark hair pulled into an elegant bun. She wore a cream-colored pantsuit with a delicate gold chain and a small leather purse tucked under her arm. Her aura was subtle but commanding. When she arrived at seat 2A, heads turned. Not because she was loud or flashy, but because she was black and sitting in their space. 2 rows down, a white teenage girl with bleached blonde hair and designer headphones paused her TikTok scrolling. She turned to her mother, equally fair-skinned and overdressed in a leopard print jacket, and whispered, not so quietly, "Did she get lost?" Monica, unfazed, double-checked her boarding pass and sat down gracefully. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" the teenager asked, her voice coated in condescension. Monica gave a tight smile and held out her ticket. 2A, confirmed. The teen rolled her eyes and turned away while her mother stared, her lips pursed in disapproval. Moments later, a tall flight attendant approached. Blonde hair pulled into a stiff bun, perfectly pressed uniform, and a name tag that read, Karen. No warm greeting, no smile, just a sharp, suspicious glance. "Ma'am, may I see your boarding pass again?" Karen asked, her tone more like a security officer than a hostess. Monica raised an eyebrow but complied. Karen glanced at the ticket, nodded curtly, and walked away without another word. The message was clear. You don't look like you belong here. 30 minutes into the flight, the seatbelt sign turned off. Monica pulled out her Kindle and started reading. Occasionally, she sipped from a cup of herbal tea she had ordered from another attendant, one who had spoken to her politely, unlike Karen. The blonde teen in seat 2B laughed loudly at something on her phone. Her elbow suddenly jabbed Monica's armrest. "Be careful," Monica said evenly, not looking up. The mother leaned in. "She's just a kid. Don't make it a thing." "I didn't," Monica replied calmly. "I just asked her to be careful." Then Karen returned with the beverage cart. She leaned in toward the teenage girl. "Coke, sweetie. Yes, please," the girl chirped, grinning as she grabbed the can and cup. Karen poured the soda into the cup and handed it to her. Monica returned to her book, unaware that things were about to spiral. Suddenly, the girl gasped and flailed her hand, whether by accident or design, no one could tell. The cup of Coca-Cola flew straight into Monica's lap, splashing ice-cold liquid across her chest, soaking her blouse and dripping down onto her cream pants. There was a collective intake of breath. The teenager covered her mouth dramatically. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she giggled. Her mother laughed too, trying to mask it with fake concern. "Sweetie, you've got to be more careful." Karen rushed over. Monica looked up, expecting at the very least a napkin, maybe an apology. Instead, Karen frowned, not at the girl who threw the drink, but at Monica. "Maybe next time you should consider flying economy," she said coldly. The cabin went silent. One could hear the hum of the engine and Monica's breath catching in her throat. Monica didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She reached into her purse, pulled out a sleek iPhone, and typed a short message. SV-271, discrimination and assault. Prep press release. Notify CEO, immediate. She set the phone down and calmly began to blot her blouse with the provided napkin. A different flight attendant, an Asian woman no older than 25, approached with wide eyes and whispered, "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Would you like a towel?" Monica nodded silently. A few rows back, a man in a business suit slowly picked up his phone. He had seen everything, and he recognized the woman now. She wasn't just another first-class passenger. She was Monica Harris, wife of Anthony Harris, billionaire founder, and CEO of SkyVista Airlines, the very airline they were all flying on. And she had just sent a message that would land like a missile at corporate headquarters. Back at SkyVista HQ in downtown Manhattan, a phone rang at the private executive line. The assistant froze when she read the alert, high priority message, direct from M. Harris, incident on SV-271. Within minutes, the CEO's chief of staff, legal counsel, and crisis communications team were mobilized. A call was placed directly to the cockpit of SV-271. The captain paled. He turned to his first officer and said, "We've got an onboard situation, and it's bigger than all of us." The cabin, once humming with casual chatter and the clink of glasses, now sat under a blanket of awkward silence. Monica Harris, still drenched in soda, sat upright. Her posture was dignified, her expression unreadable, but her silence was deafening. The air around her grew tense. The sweet, syrupy scent of Coca-Cola clung to the seat in her blouse. Ice cubes slowly melted on her lap, soaking deeper into the fabric. Her Kindle was still open in her hand, a page halfway turned. But her focus was elsewhere. Karen, the blonde flight attendant who had uttered the cruel remark about flying economy, stood just beside her. Monica didn't look at her again. She didn't have to. The words Karen had spoken moments ago still rang in her ears, and everyone else's. A few rows behind them, a man in a navy blue blazer leaned forward and whispered to his wife, "Did she just say that out loud?" His wife gave a tiny nod, eyes wide. "She did, and she's in trouble." Across the aisle, a teenage boy pulled out his phone and tilted it discreetly, catching the stained blouse, the smirking teen who threw the drink, and the flight attendant's cold face all in one frame. But Monica was not interested in the drama unfolding around her. She was focused on her phone. Her message had already been sent. In the cockpit, a light pinged twice on the captain's dashboard. Priority signal. He glanced at his co-pilot and reached for the secure intercom. "This is Captain Fields. Go ahead." A tense voice crackled back, "Captain, you have a passenger on board. Monica Harris." The captain straightened in his seat. "The Monica Harris?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "Yes, and there's been an incident. You're to maintain calm and prepare for an unplanned reception at LAX. Mr. Harris has been notified." Captain Fields swallowed hard. His knuckles turned white around the throttle. "Understood," he replied. Then he clicked off the intercom and turned to his co-pilot. "Whatever just happened in that cabin, it's about to become very, very important." Back in business class, Monica accepted a warm towel from a younger flight attendant, Jenna, who was clearly shaken. Jenna crouched next to her seat. "I'm so sorry for what happened, ma'am. I saw it." "That wasn't an accident," she whispered, careful not to draw attention from Karen. Monica simply nodded gently, dabbing at her blouse. Her voice was calm but firm. "Thank you, Jenna. I'd like a glass of still water, please. No ice." Jenna stood quickly and hurried off. Monica returned her gaze to the window. Outside, the plane soared above clouds painted gold by the late afternoon sun. She took a long breath, letting the silence do its work. The teenage girl beside her fidgeted with her phone, occasionally glancing sideways, clearly aware now that this was not a simple prank gone unnoticed. Her mother crossed her legs and pulled out a magazine, pretending to be unbothered. But the sweat glistening at her temples told a different story. 10 rows back, the businessman in the blazer sent a message of his own. "You're not going to believe this. Monica Harris is on my flight. Girl threw Coke on her. Attendant made a racist remark. It's about to go down." The reply was immediate. "Wait, the Monica Harris CEO's wife?" "Yep, already called in. Cabin's buzzing. Captain looks pale." "Oof, someone's getting fired." He smirked. If there was ever a time he was glad he'd upgraded to business class, this was it. In the crew galley, Karen leaned against the silver wall, arms folded. Her jaw was clenched. She was trying to rationalize her behavior. "She's just trying to make it a thing," she mumbled under her breath. The head purser walked in, a middle-aged man with silver hair named Cole. "Karen, can I talk to you?" She straightened. "If it's about that passenger, I was just following protocol." Cole didn't flinch. "No, you weren't, and you know it." Karen bristled. "She started it, giving me attitude since she boarded." "That woman is Monica Harris," Cole said flatly. Karen blinked. "Who will your worm? Mer who?" "Monica Harris, as in the wife of Anthony Harris, as in the man who signs your paycheck." Karen's face drained of color. She sent a priority alert directly to corporate. "This flight is being monitored now. I suggest you keep your mouth shut until we land." In row 4C, Jenna returned with the glass of water. She placed it gently on Monica's tray. "Thank you," Monica said softly. Jenna hesitated. Then, summoning courage, she added, "Whatever happens, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. You shouldn't have been treated that way." Monica looked her in the eye for the first time. "What's your name?" "Jenna Alvarez." "You did the right thing, Jenna. Thank you for your professionalism." Jenna blushed and walked away. The final hour of the flight passed like a long exhale. Passengers avoided eye contact. Conversations were hushed. Even the teenager's phone lay forgotten in her lap, her fingers fidgeting anxiously. Monica remained poised, unmoved. But inside, her thoughts were running clear and sharp. This was not the first time she'd been insulted for her skin, but it was going to be the last time anyone on this airline did it without consequences. By the time the captain announced their descent, a line of text appeared on Monica's phone screen. We are on standby at LAX. Mr. Harris will be waiting on the jet bridge. Response team prepared. She smiled faintly, calm, composed. The real turbulence was about to begin on the ground. At 32,000 feet, Flight SV-271 was just another aircraft crossing the American sky. But on the ground, it had become the center of attention. Inside the Sky Vista corporate headquarters in Manhattan, two executives burst through a glass door into the crisis management room. On the wall, live aircraft tracking software showed the blinking green icon of SV-271 cruising westward. Is she really on board? Asked Carol Reyes, head of legal, clutching a printed manifest. Yes, replied Dan Marsh, director of operations, who was already dialing on his phone. Monica Harris, confirmed seat 2A, and the report just came through: verbal discrimination, potential physical assault, and personnel misconduct. Carol stared at him. And that flight attendant, the one who told her to sit in economy. Karen Dorset, 8 years in. Spotty record, Dan muttered. 2 complaints filed last year, one for tone, one for favoritism. Both brushed under the rug. Well, Carol said, throwing the manifest onto the table. That rug's about to be ripped clean off the floor. In the skies, the cabin lights dimmed as the aircraft began its initial descent. A chime sounded. Seatbelt signs blinked on. Monica adjusted her seat upright, calm as ever. She sipped her glass of still water. Beside her, the teenage girl had sunk into silence, her earlier smirk replaced by visible discomfort. She was picking at her nail polish and chewing her bottom lip. Karen hadn't been seen for a while. The air felt thick. Tension hung like static electricity in the pressurized cabin. Meanwhile, Monica's phone lit up again. Hold on, no. New message from executive line. Mr. Harris will be at LAX gate upon arrival. You will be escorted directly. Our deepest apologies, Mrs. Harris. Orders issued. She didn't smile, not yet. There was still work to do. In the rear galley, Karen sat on the metal bench, arms crossed, cheeks flushed. She's setting me up, she muttered. This is going to ruin my career. The head purser, Cole, entered. He didn't bother sitting. Karen, he said flatly. They're waiting for the aircraft in LA. Karen looked up. Who is? Executive response team, legal, HR, security. Her voice cracked. For me, for you, for the girl and her mother, and possibly for the captain if he doesn't log this properly. Karen's shoulders tensed. This is insane. I didn't mean to insult her. I was just what Cole interrupted. Just reminding a black woman she doesn't belong in business class. Karen didn't reply. Cole stepped closer. You know who her husband is? She looked at him blankly. Anthony Harris, founder, CEO of this airline. The blood drained from Karen's face. At the front of the cabin, the captain's voice came over the PA. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing shortly at Los Angeles International Airport. Please ensure your seatbacks and tray tables are in their upright position. But in the background, a few sharp-eared passengers heard something strange. Another voice, a man on a different intercom channel. It was the first officer. Sir, the order just came in from Sky Vista Command. Executive override. Priority code 5. You know what that means. Captain Fields, gripping the yoke, exhaled. Yeah, we're about to have company. As the aircraft began its descent over the lights of Los Angeles, Monica's gaze was steady. She was no stranger to PR storms or internal investigations. But this time it wasn't about boardrooms or lawsuits. It was personal. She turned her head and looked at the girl beside her. What's your name? The teen froze. Emily. Emily, Monica said quietly. I don't expect you to understand yet, but someday you'll look back at this and realize how important it is to treat people with dignity, even if you think no one's watching. Emily swallowed hard and didn't respond. Monica didn't need her to. The lesson had already landed. Down below, the jet bridge at Gate 37A was unusually crowded. 2 Sky Vista black-suited executives stood waiting, holding tablets. Beside them was a man in a perfectly tailored, navy blue suit, polished shoes expression, unreadable hands folded in front of him. Anthony Harris. He wasn't there to make a scene. He was there to deliver judgment. As the wheels touched down and the plane taxied to the gate, the atmosphere inside grew tenser than the descent. Jenna, the kind flight attendant, had returned to Monica's row. We'll be deplaning shortly, Mrs. Harris, she said softly. Just so you know, there's a team waiting for you. Monica nodded. Thank you, Jenna. Also, your husband is there, gateside. This time, Monica's mouth curled ever so slightly. Of course he is. As the aircraft doors opened, the usual shuffle to grab overhead bags was interrupted by the sudden presence of 4 men in black suits stepping on board. They didn't say a word. They walked directly to row 2A. Mrs. Harris once said with a gentle tone. We're here to escort you. Monica stood, straightened her jacket, lifted her handbag. She walked down the aisle, graceful, silent, leaving a wake of stunned passengers who suddenly recognized her face from the covers of Forbes and Bloomberg. Karen peeked from the galley, her face pale. When their eyes met, Monica simply looked at her once, then turned away. She didn't need to say anything. Her silence spoke louder than fury ever could. The jet bridge was hushed. Passengers peeking through the narrow plane windows could see men in dark suits lining both sides of the hallway. Their posture was rigid, their gazes alert, and standing at the center like a calm in the storm was a tall, powerful man in a navy suit, his eyes locked on the aircraft door. Anthony Harris. As Monica stepped out of the cabin escorted by the internal affairs team, her eyes met his. There was no rush in her steps, no drama in her movements, but each stride echoed with authority. Monica, he said gently. Anthony, she responded, her voice warm but controlled. They didn't embrace. They didn't need to. Their mutual understanding had already passed in a single glance. Monica handed him her phone. The screen still displayed the photo of her blouse stained with Coca-Cola, time-stamped with names tagged in a note beneath. Anthony read it without flinching. Then in front of every executive staff member and camera in the hallway, he turned to his assistant. Bring them out, he said. Inside the aircraft, Karen stood at the front, pale and sweating. When the order came through the intercom, she tried to straighten her hair, fix her collar. It was too late. Cole approached with two Sky Vista security officers. Karen Dorset, please gather your belongings. You're being escorted off the aircraft per executive order. She sputtered. But the flight isn't over. I didn't do anything wrong. Cole didn't answer. Behind her, the mother and teenage daughter who'd caused the soda incident sat in stony silence. When they heard they too were being removed, the teen's face turned crimson. This is insane, the mother snapped. It was just a spilled drink. Ma'am, the officer said, we'll need you and your daughter to follow us. Passengers pulled out their phones. Some recorded, some stared. All watched as the three women walked the same aisle Monica had walked minutes earlier, but their path was heavy with disgrace. When Karen stepped into the jet bridge and saw Anthony Harris standing at the far end, her heart stopped. Mr. Harrisley. Save it, he said coldly. You had one job, to represent our brand and our values, and instead you insulted the one person who embodies both. Karen opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Anthony turned away from her, like she was already a closed file. To the mother and daughter, he didn't speak at all. Their punishment would arrive later by formal ban from all Sky Vista flights and a public statement declaring their conduct unacceptable. Monica stood quietly as her husband handled the storm. The head of PR arrived seconds later, panting. Sir, should we prepare a press conference? Anthony nodded. We'll go live in 1 hour. Monica will not speak. I will. The narrative is simple. This airline doesn't tolerate racism, disrespect, or humiliation, no matter who the passenger is. He turned to his wife. Is that okay with you? She nodded. I've already said everything I needed to without saying a word. Within 30 minutes, news alerts were flying across social media. Breaking: CEO's wife humiliated on flight. Entire crew held accountable. She was soaked in coke, and they blamed her. Anthony Harris to speak publicly at 7 p.m. PST. Across the internet, images began to circulate. Monica calmly walking down the jet bridge. Karen's stunned expression behind her. The security escort, the tense teenage girl. Hashtags exploded. Nyar, Monica Harris, Idachus Sky Vista. Justice, Dacha, silent power. One particularly viral photo captured Monica mid-step, head held high, Coca-Cola stain, still visible, flanked by the security team. The caption read, she didn't raise her voice, she just raised the bar. That evening, as media crowded in front of the Sky Vista press podium, Anthony Harris stepped up and delivered a short but thunderous message. This company was built on equality, dignity, and respect. If my own wife can be humiliated on one of our planes, it means something is deeply broken. And I intend to fix it, not just for her, but for every passenger who's ever felt less than human in a seat they paid for. The public roared with support. Employees of Sky Vista sent private messages of apology to Monica. Former passengers wrote about times they'd stayed silent in the face of similar mistreatment. And within 24 hours, the airline launched a new internal training program titled Monica Standard, the Respect Policy. 3 weeks later, Monica stood on the stage of a national women's leadership summit. She was not introduced as CEO's wife. She was introduced as a woman who changed an entire corporate culture with nothing but composure and truth. When she stepped to the mic, her words were simple. Respect isn't something you earn. It's something you're owed just by being human. The only question is, will you demand it or will you wait for permission? The room erupted in applause. But Monica didn't smile for the cameras. She smiled because she knew the next time a woman of color boarded that plane and took her seat in 2A, no one would dare ask, "Are you sure you belong here? Are you sure you belong here?" 3 days later, in a private Sky Vista executive boardroom in Manhattan, the tension was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Anthony Harris stood at the head of a long oval table, flanked by senior leadership, Chief of Operations Legal Counsel, HR Director, and the freshly appointed Vice President of Customer Culture. They were reviewing the aftermath of what had now been dubbed internally as the Monica flight incident. Monica Harris, dressed in a charcoal gray suit with a silk maroon blouse, sat calmly across from them. Her face, now recognizable to nearly every American due to the viral footage, radiated the same quiet strength that stunned millions. But today she wasn't just a passenger. She was here as an advisor to change the airline from the inside. Let's be clear, Anthony began scanning the room. This isn't just about one flight. It's about a culture that allowed that flight to happen. And Monica is going to help us clean house. A few executives shifted in their seats. Monica folded her hands. "I'm not here to take anyone's job. I'm here to make sure the right people keep theirs." Silence. Then she leaned forward, her voice calm but sharp. "Do you know how many complaints were filed by minority passengers in the last 2 years?" she asked. The HR director, a woman in her 50s, fumbled with her tablet. Somewhere between 130 and 150, I believe. Most were marked unsubstantiated. Monica nodded. "I've read all of them." Everyone stiffened. Almost none received a follow-up. Not even a courtesy email. One woman was called ghetto by a gate agent and was offered 500 miles as compensation. That wouldn't even get her to Detroit. The room was dead silent. Then Monica slid a thin folder across the table. "This is a 10-point plan. It includes immediate retraining for all frontline staff, a mandatory anti-bias program, a zero-tolerance enforcement clause, and a new customer advocacy division with real teeth." Anthony picked up the folder and opened it. A quiet smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You did all this in 2 days?" he asked. Monica met his eyes. "I've been preparing for this my whole life." Back at LAX, Jenna, the young Asian flight attendant who had stepped up to help Monica on that flight, was sitting nervously in the break room. She'd been called in for a meeting with internal affairs. She was sure she was going to be grilled. But when the door opened and an executive from HR stepped in, she was met with a kind smile. "Miss Alvarez," the woman said, "we'd like to offer you a promotion." Jenna blinked. I'm sorry. "We're launching a new ambassador program. You showed courage and compassion when it mattered. We want you to be part of the team that sets a new standard. The Monica standard." Tears welled in Jenna's eyes. "I thought I was just doing the right thing." "You were," the woman said. "And from now on, that will finally mean something here." Meanwhile, Karen Dorsett was sitting in a conference room at Sky Vista's legal division, facing 2 lawyers and a pile of paperwork. She had filed an appeal against her termination, claiming reverse discrimination and defamation. But she didn't expect Monica to walk into the room. When she did, the air froze. Karen stood awkwardly flustered. Mrs. Harris, I didn't know you'd be here." Monica didn't sit. She didn't smile. She simply walked to the table, laid down a single printed transcript of Karen's recorded statement from the flight. "Maybe next time you should consider flying economy." Those words, Monica said, her tone low but clear, are why you're no longer in uniform. Karen opened her mouth, but Monica raised a hand. "No more. You had your moment. Now it's mine." Then she turned and walked out. The appeal was quietly dropped the next day. In the following weeks, the Monica Standard was rolled out company-wide. Airport terminals buzzed with signage: "Respect is non-negotiable." Flight crews received new training led by outside experts, and Monica personally selected a panel of diverse passengers to provide anonymous feedback on service. But it didn't stop there. She worked with the CEO to launch a Sky Vista mentorship program for underrepresented employees, built from her own experience working in law and nonprofit reform. News outlets ran features titled, "The Woman Who Grounded a Culture of Disrespect." First Lady of the Skies, Monica Harris redefines airline power. But through it all, Monica remained elusive. She didn't give interviews. She declined awards. She let her work speak instead. One quiet evening, while reviewing staff feedback on her laptop at home, Anthony walked into her office. He leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're turning my company into a movement," he said with a smirk. Monica looked up with a tired grin. It was never yours alone. You just didn't know I'd come for the flight deck, too. He chuckled. Remind me never to underestimate you again. She looked back down at her laptop. You never did. That's why I married you. They shared a quiet moment. And then Monica clicked submit on the final report, knowing that thousands of passengers she'd never meet would have better journeys because of one very bad flight. The morning after Sky Vista's press conference, Monica Harris woke up to find her face on every screen in America. Her image was everywhere: news outlets, social media feeds, talk shows, and op-eds. It was the same frame, her walking calmly off the plane, the Coca-Cola stain on her blouse, like a badge of silent power. And yet, despite the explosion of attention, Monica remained still. She didn't grant interviews. She didn't post on social media. She didn't even issue a personal statement. Her silence spoke louder than 100 press releases. But the world was no longer silent. On Good Morning America, the anchor spoke passionately. This wasn't just a spilled drink. It was a cultural reckoning in 34,000 feet of altitude. What Monica Harris endured is what millions of women, especially women of color, face daily, only without the billionaire husband to fix it. On Twitter, hashtags surged. Wasunerin Racer Restored Monica Standard. First class justice. Hashanishawas. Tercharkin Don't Spill the Truth. A popular TikTok creator posted a reenactment video of the flight incident using green screen voiceovers and dramatic music. It racked up over 8 million views in 2 days. Even celebrities began speaking up. Viola Davis reposted the video with the caption, "Dignity doesn't shout. It simply walks out of the plane and lets the world decide." While the world turned her into a symbol, Monica went back to her routine. In her office, she resumed reviewing documents for Sky Vista's internal reform. Her new role had become unofficially official. She wasn't an employee she didn't need to be. She was the voice that couldn't be ignored. But change didn't come without backlash. A conservative columnist published an editorial entitled "Elites like Mrs. Harris are turning minor inconveniences into national spectacles. If every spilled drink becomes a scandal, our airlines will collapse under the weight of political correctness." It went viral for the wrong reasons. Thousands of readers fired back in defense. She didn't yell. She didn't sue. She simply demanded the respect she was owed. Minor inconvenience. Try being humiliated for existing in the wrong seat. A week later, the columnist issued a public apology. It didn't help. By now, Monica Harris had become more than a person. She was a standard. At an airline industry summit in San Diego, CEOs from 5 major airlines gathered on stage to discuss customer experience. It was supposed to be a generic panel until a moderator posed a new question. What are you doing to ensure passengers like Monica Harris are never disrespected on your flights? A murmur spread across the hall. The CEO of AeroConnect cleared his throat. Well, we've actually launched a program inspired by Sky Vista's recent reforms. We call it Empathy First. All staff are retrained on respectful language and unconscious bias. The crowd nodded. The media took notes. Behind the scenes, however, PR departments across the industry were racing to catch up with Sky Vista. Monica's quiet revolution had started a tidal wave. One evening, Monica and Anthony sat on their patio sipping tea. The city skyline blinked in the distance. Anthony scrolled through his phone and chuckled. "Did you see this?" He handed her the phone. It was a meme. A photoshopped plane with Monica's face as the logo and the tagline, "Monica Airlines, fly with respect or get grounded." She rolled her eyes and laughed softly. "That's going too far." "You think so?" he said. "People love you." "They love the version of me that fits the narrative," she replied. The calm woman who stood tall stayed quiet and looked elegant doing it. Anthony tilted his head. "You think that's not you?" She looked out over the city. "It's me, but it's also exhausting." Later that night, Monica received a message request on Instagram. It was from a young flight attendant named Renee who wrote, "Mrs. Harris, I just wanted to thank you. I'm a black woman just finished training with an airline. I almost quit after a passenger called me the help last month, but then I saw what you did, and now I walk straighter. Because if you can keep your dignity at 34,000 feet, so can I." Monica's eyes welled with tears. She typed back just one sentence. "You're not alone. You never were." The next morning, she met with a group of young women from the Monica Standard program, diverse, ambitious, thoughtful. They asked her one question. "What did you feel the moment the Coke hit your blouse?" Monica paused. "I felt heat, not from the liquid, from the judgment, the assumptions, the way I knew that they would see it as an accident and I would be seen as the problem." One girl nodded slowly. So what kept you calm? Monica smiled. The truth. That I didn't need to scream to be heard. The room went still. And in that moment, every girl in the room sat taller. Weeks passed. The media storm surrounding Monica Harris didn't die down, it transformed. She had become more than a symbol. She was a mirror. And everyone, corporate leaders, activists, flight crews, mothers, CEOs, saw something different when they looked at her. But through it all, Monica stayed quiet until one day her phone rang. It was the National Human Dignity Conference. They didn't just want her to attend. They wanted her to open the keynote. Anthony raised an eyebrow when she told him, "You going to do it?" Monica hesitated. "I've said so much without saying anything. What if words ruin it?" Anthony smiled. Or maybe they'll finish what silence started. The event was held at a massive auditorium in Washington, D.C. Rows upon rows of seats filled with reporters, advocates, scholars, airline executives, students, and travelers of every background. Banners read, "Dignity is not optional, respect has no altitude limit." And on the stage, a single podium. Monica stepped up to it in a crisp ivory suit. No makeup artist, no PR handler, just herself. She took a breath, looked out over the thousands of eyes watching her, and began. 3 months ago, I boarded a flight from New York to Los Angeles. I paid for my seat, I took my place, I read a book, and then someone poured Coca-Cola down my chest. A murmur rippled through the crowd. That moment didn't just stain my blouse, it stained something deeper. Something I've spent my whole life protecting my peace. But I didn't scream, I didn't shout, I didn't demand the plane be turned around. I typed a message, and the world listened. Why? She paused. Silence filled the room. Because there's power in choosing how you react to the moment. Because silence doesn't mean weakness when it's built on unshakable truth. And because sometimes dignity is the loudest thing in the room. The audience leaned in. I've been called lucky because I have a billionaire husband. But dignity shouldn't depend on who you're married to. It should follow you into every room, into every seat on every plane, no matter your name, your color, your income, or your past. A few stood to their feet. Applause rose. Monica held up her hand. I don't want to be your symbol. I want to be your reminder that the next time you see someone being ignored, humiliated, or accidentally shamed, you don't have to be married to a CEO to make a difference. You just have to do what one flight attendant did that day. She brought me a towel. She said sorry. She called me ma'am. That moment mattered. The screen behind her flashed, kindness is a decision. I don't want your pity, I want your promise. That when you see injustice, whether in an aisle seat or a boardroom, you won't wait for the viral moment. You'll act before the cameras turn on. Because change doesn't come from virality, it comes from vigilance, from courage, from you. Thunderous applause, full standing ovation. And Monica Harris, with a nod of gratitude, stepped back from the mic, not to fade, but to make space for others to rise. That night, news channels called it the speech that shook the airline industry. Monica Harris breaks her silence with grace and fury, from passenger to pioneer. Jenna Alvarez, the flight attendant who helped her watch from her hotel room in Chicago, tears running down her cheeks. She texted her mother. She mentioned me. I think I'm finally proud to wear this uniform. At Sky Vista HQ, Anthony sat alone in the boardroom watching the live feed on a projector wall. When Monica finished, he clapped quietly, then turned to his laptop and sent a company-wide memo. Her voice is now our compass, and if we ever fly without it, we've already crashed. Later that weekend, Monica visited a small public school in Baltimore. A group of young black girls waited in a circle of folding chairs. Their teacher had told them Monica was coming, but no one believed it until she walked in. They all stood. You don't have to stand, Monica said gently, unless you're standing up for someone else. They giggled. One girl, maybe 11 years old, raised her hand. Miss Monica, how did you stay so calm when they were mean to you? Monica crouched beside her chair. Because the moment you let someone else's smallness shrink you, you've already given them your power. The girl whispered, I want to be like you when I grow up. Monica smiled. I want you to be better. 3 weeks after her viral speech in Washington, Monica Harris sat alone in her home study. The room was dimly lit by the soft glow of her laptop. Outside, a gentle rain tapped against the windows. On the screen were requests, dozens of them. CNN, Oprah, Harvard, Time magazine. Everyone wanted her. They didn't just want her story, they wanted her face, her opinions, her next move. Anthony stepped in with a steaming mug of tea. You haven't left this desk in hours. I know, Monica replied, her voice low. They want me to run something. Like what? Congress or a foundation or a new airline. Anthony blinked. A new airline. She turned the laptop to him. It showed a headline mock-up introducing Monica Air Dignity at 35,000 feet. He chuckled. Sounds expensive. Monica didn't laugh. She was tired. Not from attention, but from the weight of expectation. The public adored her. But behind closed doors, some weren't so supportive. In a private email leak from a transportation lobbying firm, one executive had written, "She's charismatic, dangerous, and too good at making us look bad. If we let her lead the narrative, we'll all be flying under her flag by next year." The message got out. And just like that, Monica Harris became political property. Every movement wanted her endorsement. Every brand wanted her image. Every cause wanted her as a mouthpiece. But Monica didn't want to be a face. She wanted to be a force. Then came the turning point. A woman named Ruth Daniels, age 63, was removed from a regional flight after complaining about her broken seatbelt. The flight attendant accused her of being aggressive. She was handcuffed on the tarmac. The incident sparked immediate outrage. And the first comment under the viral video, "Where's Monica Harris now?" Thousands of others echoed it. People weren't just looking up to her. They were depending on her. Monica flew to meet Ruth personally. They sat together on a park bench in Atlanta. Ruth wore a faded green sweater and a silver cross. "I didn't ask to go viral," Ruth said softly. "I just wanted to get to my grandson's graduation." Monica nodded. "That's how it happens. One moment, and everything changes." "But I'm not you," Ruth whispered. "I don't have a billionaire husband or a team of lawyers." Monica took her hand. "You have something more powerful, the truth, and I'll stand with you." That week, Monica called a press conference. But this time, it wasn't just her on stage. It was her and Ruth, side by side. Monica stepped up to the mic. "This is not about Monica Harris anymore. This is about every person who was ignored, mishandled, or silenced because someone else couldn't see their worth." Ruth Daniels deserved to be heard. And instead she was handcuffed. Let me be clear, no airline gets to hide behind policy when they deny people their humanity. We're not just starting a movement, we're starting a network. One that defends dignity seat by seat. The crowd erupted. Monica wasn't alone anymore. She had found her next purpose. The Passenger Dignity Network (PDN) was born. It wasn't a company, it wasn't a brand. It was a watchdog coalition, and it had teeth. They launched a reporting hotline, a real-time public rating dashboard for airlines, legal defense funding for wronged passengers, monthly transparency reports. Within 2 months, over 3 million flyers had registered. And Monica, she turned down every book deal, TV contract, and political offer. Instead, she went seat to seat. She met passengers, sat in economy, talked to airport janitors, listened to call center agents. Her presence made people nervous because she wasn't playing the hero. She was changing the rules. But not everyone was happy. One major airline banned all PDN-affiliated volunteers from flying under their name. Their CEO stated, "We don't take kindly to activists who threaten our trained staff with emotional blackmail." The backlash was swift. Protests, boycotts, stock drops. And Monica? She simply tweeted, "If your policies can't survive scrutiny, maybe they were never ethical to begin with." It was reposted over 9 million times. One night back at home, Anthony found her asleep on the couch, her laptop open, headphones still on. He smiled, then read what she had been typing before drifting off. "Dignity doesn't fly first class. It flies wherever you sit." He didn't close the laptop. He just kissed her forehead, turned off the light, and whispered, "You're changing the sky, love. One seat at a time." Autumn had arrived. With it came not just the changing of leaves, but a shift in the airline industry across America. Inside the Capitol committee rooms, once used for budget hearings, now filled with a new urgency passenger dignity legislation. What started with a spilled Coca-Cola had now led to a national conversation. And more than that, it had become a mandate. One that lawmakers couldn't ignore. In a packed Senate chamber, the Transportation Oversight Committee opened its session. On the docket, the Passenger Dignity and Protection Act, PDPA. The bill was co-sponsored by members of both parties. It called for mandatory bias and de-escalation training, real-time passenger complaint tracking, an independent grievance board, and even an annual airline respect index. And at the center of it all, Monica Harris. She wasn't in the chamber, but her name was spoken 19 times in the opening statements. One senator said, "If it weren't for Monica Harris, we wouldn't even be sitting here. She showed us that altitude doesn't change attitude, and it's time we legislate accordingly." Another added, "She proved that you don't need a badge or a microphone to bring accountability. Sometimes you just need grace." The bill passed committee unanimously. Meanwhile, at Sky Vista HQ, Anthony Harris sat with his board of directors. The company had seen a 24% drop in complaint volume since the Monica standard rolled out. Customer satisfaction was the highest in 7 years. But the most surprising number, employee satisfaction. Crew members felt heard, agents felt protected. Pilots wrote in to thank the company for finally putting humanity above PR. Anthony looked at the numbers, then back at the board. "We're not in the business of just selling tickets anymore," he said. "We're selling trust, and Monica taught us how to earn it." One board member raised a concern. "But if every airline adopts the PDPA, we'll lose the Monica advantage." Anthony shook his head. "If every airline treats passengers better, we all win. And if they don't, well, Monica's not done yet." Indeed, she wasn't. That same week, Monica was in Detroit walking through a terminal with no press and no entourage. She was meeting with ground crews, baggage handlers, wheelchair assistants, janitorial teams. She spoke to them one-on-one listening as they described passengers who screamed at them, supervisors who ignored complaints and policies that rewarded speed over care. A man named Malik, who pushed elderly passengers between gates, shared, "Most of the time I get treated like furniture. But last month a woman held my hand and said, 'Thank you.'" "You know who that was? You." Monica smiled. "People think change starts at the top," she told him. "But it starts wherever someone decides to speak up or show up." She shook his hand. "Thank you, Malik." Not long after Monica received an email. Subject: United Nations Invitation Global Aviation and Human Rights Summit. They wanted her to open the event in Geneva. The theme: Dignity in Transit. Anthony asked her, "Will you go?" She paused. "Only if I bring someone." "Eh, sir." Monica showed him the list: Jenna Alvarez, Malik Ruth Daniels, and 2 young interns from the PDN. This story was never mine alone, so the stage shouldn't be either. At the Geneva summit, Monica and her team stood before hundreds of delegates from over 50 countries. Monica took the podium one last time. "When we talk about rights, we usually speak of them in crisis, war, poverty, injustice. But sometimes dignity dies in smaller moments. Being talked over, being doubted, being made invisible, in a seat you paid for. This movement isn't about revenge. It's about returning humanity to travel, and it won't stop at borders or time zones. Because when one voice stands up at 35,000 feet, it teaches us something timeless. Dignity doesn't need altitude, it just needs courage." The room stood in ovation, and in that moment, Monica didn't feel famous. She felt fulfilled, not because people applauded, but because others had found their voices too. Back in the U.S., President Marlow signed the Passenger Dignity and Protection Act into law. With the pen Monica had gifted him, a simple silver pen engraved with one word: respect. Monica wasn't there for the signing. She was on a flight to Tulsa, seated in 28B next to a young mom with 2 kids offering to hold a crying baby so the mother could finish her meal. Because the work didn't end in Geneva. It began again in the aisle and the gate, in the row where no one expects it. 6 months had passed. The world had changed. Planes flew with newly trained staff. Airports posted dignity guidelines at every gate. Passenger complaint boards became public, and the name Monica Harris had become more than a symbol. It was a standard. But Monica had grown quieter. She had turned down more speaking engagements. She delegated most PDN operations to a new leadership team. She even canceled a televised interview with a major global outlet. And instead, she returned to the skies. Not in first class, not even in business, but in row 29, seat A, where a grandmother struggled to calm a fussy toddler, where a nervous teenage boy clutched his boarding pass like it might evaporate, where a flight attendant smiled gently and asked, "Can I get you something, ma'am?" Monica smiled back. "Just water, please, and keep doing what you're doing." Back at home, Anthony noticed the change. "You're pulling back," he said one night. "I'm not leaving," she replied. "I'm letting others step forward. You built this, Monica, and now it's theirs. That's the point." She handed him a letter, her formal resignation from the Passenger Dignity Network board. Anthony was quiet. "You're sure?" She nodded. "It's time. If the movement only works because I'm in it, then it was never strong to begin with." He looked at her with deep pride. "You didn't just survive what happened that day on the plane. You transformed it." Monica smiled. "Pain can crush you, or it can carve you." The new director of PDN was Jenna Alvarez, the flight attendant, who had once handed Monica a warm towel with shaking hands. Now she stood in a press room confidently announcing, "We're expanding into international flight protections and launching a pilot mentorship program for underrepresented youth. Monica taught us how to lift passengers. Now it's our turn to lift each other." When a reporter asked, will Monica Harris still be involved? Jenna answered without hesitation. Her spirit is woven into every seatbelt clasp, every training manual, every thank you card written by a grateful passenger. You may not see her on stage anymore, but you'll feel her on every flight that treats people like people. A month later, Monica visited her old university to give a surprise guest lecture. The room was filled with young students, future lawyers, policymakers, and entrepreneurs. She walked in wearing jeans and a simple blouse. No cameras, no entourage. Just Monica. A girl in the front row gasped, "Is that?" The professor smiled. "You all studied her case. Now you get to meet her." Monica stepped up to the front, looked around, and said, "So, who here has ever been made to feel like they didn't belong?" Every hand in the room went up. Monica nodded. "Then you understand what my entire movement was built on." She shared stories, some public, some private. She talked about power perception and the unexpected weight of becoming a symbol. And then she asked a question that hung in the air. What would you do if the world handed you a microphone but you never asked for one? A girl in the back raised her hand. "I think I'd use it for those who didn't have one." Monica smiled. "That's the right answer, because it's never about becoming the loudest voice. It's about being the clearest one for those who've gone unheard too long." On her final public appearance, Monica sat on a wooden bench at a small regional airport. Next to her was an elderly man in a cap that read, "Tuskegee Airmen Alumni." He looked at her and said, "You change things you know." Monica chuckled softly. "A soda, a seat in a storm. That's all it took." "No," he said. "It was your stillness. The way you didn't rise to fire. You rose to truth. That's rarer than you think." She turned to him. "You were first. I just followed the path." He smiled. "And you widened it." A few days later, Monica was seen at a community garden in Brooklyn, hands dirty, planting kale with children from a local school. A volunteer asked, "Wait, are you that Monica?" She shrugged. "I'm just Monica today." The kids didn't care. To them, she was just a nice lady who helped them plant something that would grow. And in a way, that was the whole story. Not the headline, not the outrage, not even the victory. Just something small buried in earth that would grow into something better. Because in the end, Monica Harris didn't set out to become a movement. She simply refused to shrink. And the world it grew around her.